Hello, everyone. Welcome to Disc Dandies, a podcast where each episode, two friends share a recommendation with one another. We talk about what we liked, what we would change, and try not to judge each other too much over our bad tastes. This week, we commit mattress. I'm sorry, what? Commit matricide? Who wrote this? Jordan, did you write this?
Is that not okay?
Just go ahead and roll the intro music. Welcome to Disc Dandies. Jesus Christ.
All right, Will, here we are. Second run, take two. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I feel like I'm on my A game. There will absolutely be no problems with this episode whatsoever. I promise you.
Nah, I'm just like staring intently at Craig right now.
Actually, we do have a problem. Okay, so I'm already having a bad day. I gotta let you know.
Oh, what's making your day not good?
We got a situation over here. You know me. You know I love to be hydrated. I don't have any fizzy water.
Oh no, you're a dry boy today.
I only have 2 drinks on my desk right now.
That'll make you through this introduction at most.
If I really had to, I could go crack a beer, since it's like 11 a.m. But I'm not going to do that out of respect to our listeners. I'm just going to have to get through this with a mug of piping hot coffee and a huge Nalgene bottle filled with precious liquid gold tap water.
If there's one thing I could say we could owe our listeners, I think it's a white girl wasted episode.
I tell you what. Okay, so we're not at the point where we could ask our listeners, however many or few we have, for money. But I think in the future, maybe that could be an idea. We could have a little tipsy cast and have even worse opinions about the stuff we talk about.
Whenever we inevitably put up our Patreon, that'll be one of our goals. Is like, hey, whenever you guys give us enough money, we'll get White Girl Wasted for an episode, and I don't know, we'll talk about like Sex in the City or something.
We talked a little bit about this just briefly before, but now that we're recorded and this is going to be out there in the world, I want to reiterate the idea that I want to call our fans the Dandy Dogs.
The Dandy Dogs. I assume that's the reference to the Diamond Dogs from Metal Gear Solid 5, right?
Absolutely, which is definitely something we're going to talk about in the future. I think it's a good idea.
Are you spoiling our future plans?
Oh no! Cut it out! Cut it out! Beep 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 beep. You didn't hear anything.
Yeah, before people dig too deep into that juicy slip, I guess we're gonna try something new. We talked about this a little bit before we tried our first failed recording. Again, thanks, Craig. But we're gonna try to start these podcasts off with a question of sorts.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Please probe my brain.
Yeah, so it could either pertain to the topic that we're talking about this week, or it could not at all. And this week, it's sort of in between. It's actually kind of inspired by this. But my question for you this week, Will, is: should you or should you not meet your heroes?
You're starting off with a deep one here. I do like it though. I'm gonna say you should meet your heroes because they will always disappoint you, and it's good to know. It's good to get that occasional reminder that things are never as good as you think they are.
I had a jokey kind of response to this, but this is actually kind of spurred on by Edmund McMillen from The Binding of Isaac. Mostly the before and after that we saw from him from the Indie Game the movie. Did you ever watch that?
No, I haven't seen this.
Okay, so in Indie Game the movie, part of that movie is the creative process or the struggles that Edmund McMillen and Tommy Refenes, I think his name is, his partner, the co-creator of Super Meat Boy. It was their development of Super Meat Boy.
Okay.
And a lot of people really loved Edmund coming out of that documentary. But since then, he's kind of developed a bit of kind of a bad taste among fans because he's kind of black-pilled
Oh, okay, okay. Tweeting things he shouldn't tweet. Okay.
It's more like he's just kind of lost all like faith in humanity is the vibe that you kind of get from him.
Okay, real quick. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is like Mark Rosewater, ultra wholesome designer for Magic the Gathering, and 10 is like Notch. Where's he at?
Actually, I am one of the people who's not a big fan of Rosewater, but I'm still going to use your scale as imperfect as it is. I think he's probably okay. So Notch, yeah, he's like Notch is an 11. I would say he's probably at like a 6. But it's not like he's saying racist or sexist things. It's more like he's like, y'all are all assholes. F all of you is more the vibe coming from him.
Oh, okay. I think I'm misunderstanding. Okay, so he's not like being like a Nazi online or like being hateful, like a racist and sexist. He's just hating on his fans. That's actually kind of based.
Yeah, it is. So this kind of segues into my answer to this question, and I think that yeah, I agree with you. I think yeah. I mean, part of the problem with like America and Americans like approach to celebrities is their ability to is their willingness to put them up on the pedestal and like, project personalities onto these people. I think it is healthy and good to learn more about these people and kind of let the guard down more if they can. It's just all like I think it's like knowing that he's lost that faith a little bit is a little reassuring because it just kind of humanizes them more for me.
No, that's absolutely a great way to look at it. I'm gonna say hopefully nobody who like enjoys our podcast ever meets me, because I will absolutely disappoint them.
We'll just set the bar really low for both of us.
So my understanding is that next episode I'll be bringing a question for us to riff off of, and I'm thinking about some ones that are really going to bring the chuckles, bring the yucks, and we'll have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, well, hopefully my subject for next week can provide some fuel for that because I think I got a good one for you.
Okay, yeah, this is one of the weeks where I don't know what you're going to exhort to me. So yeah, very very looking forward to that. Hey, you want to talk about Isaac?
Yeah, please. I'm very excited to talk about this.
All right, yeah. So my exhortation for this week was the absolute classic roguelike indie game, The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. And this is a game that both of us like this game, and we've both put a bunch of time into it, but I just wanted to talk about it, so it wasn't much of a surprise. But for those of you who are not familiar with this game, the original Binding of Isaac, created and designed by Edmund McMillan, who we just spoke about a little bit before. And the original game, it was a Flash game released in 2011.
To your point about this being a classic, this I think this is just like a meat and potatoes game for people coming into video games. Like if you can get them past the nasty imagery that some might not like, if you can get them past that, you have a really like base like good gaming experience, a very good introduction to video games.
Yeah, we'll talk about this, but I really do think this game is just really well and tightly designed, and definitely works in its favor. However, today we're talking about The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. And Rebirth was released in 2014 as a more expandable remake. Flash has, as I'm sure most of us know, Flash has a lot of limitations. And they wanted to remake the game in a way that would make it more expandable, where they could, add more content more easily, and also just update things, just making a more stable game. So that was released in 2014 and produced by the studio Nicalis.
I think this is one of 2 partnerships with Edmund McMillan. I think they helped him make The End Is Nigh as well. I could be wrong, but
I think that's correct.
Yeah, they've been in a few other games as well. They're a pretty good indie studio from what I know about them.
Yeah. I mean, if The Binding of Isaac Rebirth is any indication of their ability to like produce like a really good game, I mean, this is just the pinnacle. So there is a story to The Binding of Isaac Rebirth, but it's very sparse, and you get most of it at the beginning of the story. But like I said, it's so intertwined with everything else in the game, like all the gameplay and the roguelike elements that just want to go ahead and give you a quick story overview. So Isaac is just a normal kid, just plays with his toys, lives with his mom, just lives a normal life. And his mom, is a lover of Christian programming, as they say. Watches a lot of the sermons and the church programming on the television.
Like, she's kind of played to a comical extent, obviously, like because of the horrifying stuff we see in the game. But I think a lot of people, especially in like the South, can relate to I guess the zealotry at work with her.
Oh yeah, we all know people who are like this. It's very much a trope rooted in reality, especially if you're from like the South or rural places like that. Unfortunately, Isaac's mom starts hearing the voice of God, as you do, giving her instructions to keep Isaac away from sin, taking away his toys, taking away his clothes, just making him live a very sparse life. And this culminates in the voice of God asking Isaac's mom to sacrifice Isaac as a show of devotion. And anybody who's familiar with Bible stories knows exactly what's happening here. Allusion to, I believe it was Abraham who was asked by God to sacrifice his son, Isaac.
Yeah, it was Abraham. And I think this is like a fun and subjective, but it's a very unique and creative take on that tale too, especially like applying it to that that devout Christian mother archetype. It's a very I think it's a very creative twist that Edmund Macmillan put on that.
Yeah, for sure. And no one can miss the illusion. I think it is a little bit on the nose, but I think it works in the game's favor for that illusion to just very much be like right there in your face. You cannot miss it. So Isaac runs into his room, terrified because his mom's chasing him with a huge kitchen knife, threatening to like kill him as a sacrifice to the voice of God, as you would, right? And he is able to escape his mom by shutting the door, looking around his room, and he finds a trap door that goes down below the house. And he jumps into the trap door, and then that's where the game starts. In the basement, right underneath the house. But that's pretty much the story of what happens, and you'll see how that connects to the gameplay as we go through. Jordan, I know that you are already a fan of this game, but just put it into words for me. What do you think about this game?
Okay, so yeah, as you can probably tell from what I've said so far, I really love this game. I haven't gone as deep as you or my girlfriend Tristan, who has put bajillions of hours into this. I've beaten Mom on several occasions, which I hope isn't too much of a spoiler considering the nature of the game. But I've made it to a bunch of the post bosses after the fact. But in general, like I said before, I think this is a game that is very kind of a pillar of the modern gaming industry. You see a lot of games releasing today, like Hades is the most recent example that takes a lot of inspiration from the Binding of Isaac in both perspective and design, where it's you have one thing that you're doing through the entire game, and all of the abilities and upgrades that you get are just modifying that mechanic. And I think that's like I said, very much a meat and potatoes thing. And if anyone ever asks me for what's a game that you would point people to introduce them to the gaming industry, and if assuming they're open-minded enough to the themes and the imagery, I would probably point to the Binding of Isaac.
Yeah, now that you mention it, this game, The Binding of Isaac, and some of Edmund Macmillan's other games, like Super Meat Boy would be the other super huge one, really was, it's, a pillar of modern gaming for the reasons that you said, but it's also just one of the first examples of a truly independent game just becoming huge and becoming a phenomenon in the gaming industry, right? The whole independent game development scene owes a whole lot to both Ed and Macmillan and this game.
I think that's very much true because, both whenever Edmund Macmillan, I think, really got was one of the reasons why the indie scene really took off the way it did. And that, again, that's documented in a little bit in Indie Game the Movie. But like they released Super Meat Boy on Games with Gold and were like the top seller for a time, back on the Xbox 360. He kind of did it again with Binding of Isaac, where I think if I'm not mistaken, Binding of Isaac has even outstripped Super Meat Boy's success.
That's what I would assume, but I don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
I assume that's the case with how often they go back to the well with it. Because, whenever they released Rebirth, he was like, this is the last time. And then he did Afterbirth, and he was like, this is the last time. And now they're doing another one right now. And he's like, okay, this is the last time again.
Big Kojima energy.
Yeah, for real. And I think part of it's just because, I think he very much obviously loves the game himself. It's not, I think that more than any other thing we've seen from him is probably his biggest, I don't want to speak for him, of course, but if I could have a take on it, I think it would be that this is probably the big passion project for him, just considering he keeps going back to it.
Right. Well, I'm glad to hear that you like this game as much as I do. Do you want to get into the specifics of the gameplay?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
All right. So we've used the term already, but this is, a shining example of a roguelike. And for those of you who don't know what that means, it comes from, the play pattern of the original game called Rogue. And the term really these days means any game that is based on like a procedurally generated pattern of some sort, either like the dungeons or, okay, I'll just speak for this game. The dungeons are procedurally generated, and the placement of items that you find as you're going through the dungeons are randomized. Their placement plus what they are, what the rooms contain, all of it changes from game to game. And also a part of what roguelike means is that it's a replayability aspect, that you're not expected to win every game, and when you die, you will start the game over again and everything gets reset. There are meta things that, kind of keep the game progressing, from playthrough to playthrough. But the idea is that you will die a lot and then you will always start over and lose all of your progress.
Yeah, and typically the length of the campaigns are condensed, because I'm sure a lot, people that are maybe uninitiated to the genre might hear that and be like, "Oh, that sounds miserable." But it's like the entire playthrough is pretty condensed. I think you can get from the beginning of an Isaac run to Mom in a couple of hours. Would you say that's about right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, sure, it can seem like it hurts a lot, but once you get used to the idea of losing that progress and dying and stuff, it's just kind of a part of the loop.
It speaks to a player who is focused on improving their skills and getting better. It's not there are players who are going to see a game like this and think, "Oh, this is not fun. I don't want to do this. I don't want to lose my progress all the time." And then there are players who are able to find the fun in basically figuring out the system, figuring out how to get past it, and how to improve from run to run. So I won't say that this game is for everyone, and it's definitely something I kind of had to get acclimated to. I've definitely had some times where I was incredibly frustrated because I made a silly mistake and then lost a really good run. But that's just what this game is. You have to be able to find the fun in that.
But I think both myself and Tristan would consider this like a game that you're going to unwind to, as stressful as losing that progress can be. But if I don't really feel like committing too much to anything, or this is the sort of game I want to play where I sit down, my progress is very limited. I can just kind of turn my brain to soup and just just try to push a run through, and I don't feel too torn up if I die or anything like that. It's just it feels really good to just sit down and play.
Sure. Well, let's get further into the mechanics of the game. So it plays a lot like, and this is the comparison that everyone makes, is that it plays just like old school Legend of Zelda. The dungeons play out. They're square rooms, or not always square, but mostly square rooms. They're stacked in rows and columns, and you have to navigate the rooms one by one, clear them of enemies. by shooting your tears. Of course, Isaac is very sad that his mom is trying to kill him, so he is permanently crying, and he shoots tears, in cardinal directions towards the enemies and kills them that way. And you progress, you find bombs, keys, coins, much like the original Legend of Zelda, and you want to find there's a shop room, there's a treasure room, and then a boss room, and you just find these rooms, you clear them, you get any items you buy stuff from the shop, and then once you beat the boss, you go down to another level and do it all over again. And that's the basic progression. And you get stronger as you find items, and you just keep going as far as you can until you can. There is an end that you can reach, but the idea is that you just keep going until you can't anymore.
Yeah, and the end is never as conclusive as you'd think, because there's always more to find after the fact. It's just something I really liked about this game, is that the well is extremely deep. So if you decide that you just want to play more, you're always going to find something new. There's just the items all augment your base ability to shoot tears. You'll get some consumable items that you kind of use once with the press of a button that like a bomb or something like that. But for the most part, all of your abilities are augmenting the size, speed, and effect of your tears. So for instance, there's one ability that'll turn your tears into lasers. And and then you could get another one that's okay, well, now your tears shoot in little loops or circles, and then that suddenly you're shooting these giant circular laser beams.
Yeah, it's really cool how augmented you can become as you play. You start out as just a baby wearing no clothes and that's crying, and at the end, if you get to the end or you grab a bunch of items, and all the items kind of change your appearance, which is another cool thing, you start looking pretty grotesque, and your tears start being very powerful and doing weird stuff to your advantage. I think that the amount of treasure and the items, the special items you could pick up that augment your abilities, is one of the major selling points of this game. The original game had a good amount, enough to kind of keep playing the game and get a bunch of combinations. With Rebirth and then all of the DLC that they've been adding, there are so many pieces of treasure, and you have to play for hundreds and hundreds of hours to even be able to see all of the items that are available to you.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the biggest strength of this game, is that every playthrough feels different, mostly just because the mechanic, while it's still the same, it can feel very different, and it keeps it interesting.
Yeah. And the flavor of these items is also really, really well done, really flavorful, and really tightly designed into the flavor and the story of the whole game. A lot of it are clues to the fact that Isaac has a really tough childhood. You can find dog snacks that are called a snack, or spoiled milk that's called breakfast, and you get these clues as to kind of what kind of childhood that Isaac is having, and then a lot of religious items too.
I think some of the more really disturbing ones too are just things that Isaac interacts with that you're just oh god, no kid should ever have to interact with that. But it'll be hit half of his cat Guppy. I can't remember if it was roadkill or something his mom did, but there are just things that you find that are just Jesus,
Right. Yeah. And the idea is that he's underneath the house, so you find a lot of stuff that would be normal to just lose and end up underneath the house, like your old dead cat, or old dog food, or a lost key, or a razor blade or something like that. So that's definitely flavorful. Kind of gives us a window into Isaac's troubled childhood. And then I really do like the religious items, because you get both devilish stuff, connected to Satan, Lord of the Pit, and demonic pact and stuff like that. But you can also get heaven stuff, from God, so you can get a Bible, or like a wafer that protects a holy mantle. So you can definitely you kind of get both sides of the religious stuff. It's not just he becomes a demon and starts like worshiping Satan. You can definitely play it and get a whole bunch of I guess like good religious items.
And I like how good in this game is like really like kind of loose, because there are angelic or like heaven enemies in the game as well that are kind of just as terrifying as any of the demonic stuff. The game has a very like kind of gray view on those things, and I like that a lot too. There's a lot of like subtext to it all, like God being the one that like kind of instigated all of this stuff happening for Isaac. Anyways, there's a lot of really nice spins on it.
That's a great way to put it. And I think it has a very great look at religion. Towards the end of the game, you can actually choose there are two routes that you can take. And one takes you to Sheol and lets you fight Satan. So basically you're going further into hell. And then there's another one that actually takes you to the cathedral. So that would be like the heaven counterpart to Sheol. And that one is very much like coded as like, it's good and everything's bright and blue and all that stuff. But the enemies are still there and they're still trying to kill you. And you end up actually fighting yourself at the end of it, which is definitely, trying to say something about Isaac's experience. So very gray look at religion. So so at the end of each level, you have to fight end bosses. And these are usually pretty grotesque. A lot of devils, a lot of like spiders and flies. There's Monstro, which is a huge like blob of
flesh, right?
Blob of flesh that like shoots tears and like beam shots at you. And they start out pretty easy, of course, because they want you to kind of be able to get a little bit further. They do get harder, really like exponentially harder once you get to the end. And if you get items that are okay, but you like they don't really synergize well, synergy between items is also a really important part of like getting super powerful in this game. If you just have a bunch of so-so items, you're gonna hit a wall to a point where you need to be a very good player and able to compensate for your items not being that great to continue.
I think I felt that a lot my first few times playing the game, and I think that it's hard to kind of recognize that there are just some items you shouldn't pick up as well. Like there are specific abilities that when I see, I'm like, I am not getting that. Typically, it's the ones where they'll like corkscrew your tears or something like that, where I'm just like, the last time I got that, it ended in me having a very miserable run. So there is still some amount of like player agency in the game as well. You're not just left with what you're given, which is nice.
Yeah, there are. I don't want to say that any items are bad. I think that every item has a synergy with like another item or another set of items that's definitely possible to like be powerful and win with. I think everyone can agree that there are some items that are just good no matter what. Like you always want to get them. And then there are some that are, interesting and flavorful. So let me ask you, I think I know what your answer is going to be to this, but do you think that everything that Isaac sees and does in the game, like, when he goes to Sheol and fights Satan and all that stuff, do you think all that stuff actually happens?
Like, whenever I first started playing the game, I assumed it was all just like metaphorical or stuff that he was seeing. But there's a certain point, I think, where you go deep enough into the game that there's just a lot happening, and there's so many like deep references that like I just think implies that this stuff is actually happening. There are some bosses that are just very like, how the hell would a child know about this type thing, and like what would the metaphor even be outside of this just actually happening? I think that this is just actually happening.
Sure, yeah. Now the story of this game is very sparse, but there is like different endings to it, which I don't think we're going to get into. We are going to like leave that as a spoiler free thing that you can experience on your own. But I do think that some of the endings do kind of clue you in on like what's actually happening. I'm going to take the contrarian take here and say that there's definitely a point in the game where it starts getting untethered from reality, and it's not really what's going on. Like, I don't think Isaac's really going to Sheol and fighting Satan, or going to, going to the cathedral and fighting himself. There's definitely like a point where it becomes like metaphysical, whether that's like him imagining, or actually becoming untethered from reality and becoming some sort of like interterrestrial being. I don't know, but yeah, I just think that's interesting that it's like it's not completely rooted in reality. There's definitely something else going on.
This game like kind of intentionally goes off the rails in terms of that stuff. And I think it's, I want to say, like, interpretable to a point. I think a lot of, if you try to apply like real world like attributes to Isaac or anything else that's happening in that house, I think a lot of the reason why I just don't think that it is imaginings is just like, how the hell would a kid know about these things? Even if his mom was just like heavily like religiously inclined, there are just like references and figures that you come across that are just like very like deep cuts in terms of religious allegory goes,
Yeah. And honestly, I think some of that is just Edmund McMillan just like putting a lot of his lived experience into this game. I mean, for him to like design this game and to put all of this in here, like you can tell, and I know that he's like he's on record saying these things, but like a lot of his like shitty childhood, is in that. And kind of expressing his like fears as a child, and like his feelings about how he grew up, and the people around him when he was a child. A lot of that is coded into the game, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that just is kind of just his lived experience.
So it's just a lot more meta than what even the game would have you believe. It's like it is just more like autobiographical to an extent.
Sure, yeah, and it just, the game is so tightly designed that like you can tell that Edmund put a ton of work into this and turning it into a game that's both fun, gameplay wise, mechanically very intricate and engaging, and then also just be like very expressive of who he is as a person and all of his fears and anxieties. It's just like it really is just the perfect package of form and function. And actually, something else I wanted to talk about, and I think kind of goes into that, is there are lots of playable characters that you can play. Like there's Isaac, who starts out, like not with anything special, and eventually in the game he gets the D6, so he becomes like his own special character. But there are other characters that you can play, and then a whole bunch that you can unlock. And we're not going to talk about all of them, but they're all references to biblical characters. And I'm sure like that's supposed to be a reference to like, how he has all of this exposure to Christianity, through his mom and his environment. And one of my favorite details about this is that you can tell that they aren't actual different characters. They're Isaac in like costume. So Magdalene is him wearing a wig, and Cain is him wearing an eye patch. Just a really interesting way to take the other playable characters and tie it into the story.
Yeah, and it also kind of like lends another like angle to the whole idea that Isaac is very confused about who he is as a person as well, playing dress up as these other people, because there's also like other items that you pick up that maybe lend credence to the idea that like Isaac is not confident in things like his sexuality or who he is as a person, that sort of thing.
Yeah, in between each of the levels, you actually get a shot of Isaac laying on the floor crying, and he remembers like bad things that happened to him, and one of them is people laughing at him for wearing a wig, and then a lot of other ones that are pretty funny, like him like being in the bathroom and there not being any toilet paper is pretty funny. And people laughing at him because like his pants fell down, that kind of stuff. But then you get those like really serious ones where he gets laughed at for wearing the wig, or like he keeps trying to hug his mom's leg and his mom keeps kicking him off. That stuff's like really sad.
Yeah, and this probably sounds like super demented for us to be like enjoying, but it's one of those things where it's all in the presentation. It's very well delivered, and it doesn't as mean as a lot of it is. It never feels mean, if that makes sense. You're always meant to feel sympathy for Isaac.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know all the details about like Edmund Macmillan's life and anything. I don't want to like make any assumptions about what his life was like, but like, you know, that's how people deal with like tough things in their life, is that they, you know, make jokes about it, and you know they express it in ways that are like, you know, subversive and, you know, silly, as a way to like work through all that stuff, and present it in a way that, you know, makes them healthier at the end. And that's definitely what's happening in this game. So I like roguelikes just as a genre, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I've played a whole bunch of them. I mean, Isaac is definitely the one that I've put a lot of time into. I would say the other one that I've really spent time with is like Rogue Legacy, which is a different type of game. What other roguelikes do you have experience with? Is Isaac your favorite roguelike?
Okay, so I referenced it earlier, but Hades is the most recent one that I've been playing. I think as of right now, that'd probably be my game of the year, to be honest. Like it doesn't even really feel close to the other stuff I've played this year. Just to kind of give a short overview, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have played it by now, but you play as like the son of Hades, Lord of the Underworld, God of the Underworld, and your entire goal is to escape the underworld, and you are forming and improving relationships with other gods and mythological Greek figures. Like, you know, you'll have like Nyx, the like the entity of night, and like other gods like Zeus and Artemis and stuff, that you like form relationships and improve over the game. I would say that as of right now, Isaac is probably my favorite roguelike, but I think Hades is one that I would say is like giving it a good run for its money right now.
Oh yeah, Hades is exploding. Like it just got nominated for a lot of like Game of the Year awards and stuff like that. I have not played it, so I can't speak to it. I guess the point I'm trying to get at is, do you think that Isaac is like what roguelike should be, or is there things that are going on in the roguelike world that Isaac is missing and is a detriment to it? I wanted to ask you because I figured you probably had more experience with roguelike than I do.
Okay, yeah, I've played a bunch of roguelikes. I would say like just challenging games in general, or something that like especially like in my like younger years, teenage and like early 20s, like I played a ton of like roguelikes and like harder games like Dark Souls and stuff. They're just a genre that I'm attracted to. I don't think that you can criticize Isaac's gameplay philosophy, because again, it's very much like everyone, all these games, like whether or not they are more considered roguelites because they let you carry over more of your progression than something like Isaac or even Hades would, or they are more like Isaac where it's a lot more of a hard reset. I think that Isaac is like the parent to all of those games in a way, even if it's taken some ideas from other games as well. I think that Isaac, in my opinion, is the closest thing to perfection in the roguelike genre that we have, because everyone looks to it and it still feels great and plays great, and it's still very interesting to play after all this time. I don't think I could level criticism at it.
You say all that, yet when I exhorted you to play Helltaker, apparently that was too much, too hard.
Okay, because I think that game was poorly designed, but that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, I totally understand. I guess I have to compare this to Rogue Legacy, which is a game where, like, when you die, you start over. But the progression system in that game, where you get the gold and then you can level up your character, and eventually you get to the point where you can get really far into the game, you are essentially playing the same game over and over again. I feel that from run to run, Isaac is very much a different game from run to run, and a lot of that is the combination of the items that you pick up, instead of a game like Rogue Legacy where you just become better at the same game over and over again. So I didn't know if Isaac was like unique in that sense, that, you know, that like the individual runs are so different from each other, than a game like Rogue Legacy, where it really just feels like you're playing the same game over and over. Does Hades have a lot of like a differentiation between the individual runs?
Yeah, absolutely. Because like there are these like bestow. This is the thing, is like Hades takes a lot from Isaac, I think, and it modernizes a lot of the Isaac ideas, mostly in its like relationship systems and stuff, where you're just kind of like giving items of favor to these different like Greek mythological figures. But what Hades is doing is very similar to like the item augmentation system from Isaac, which is that you get different bestowments from the gods that you apply to your abilities, and it alters them. You'll have like two doors when you finish a level. One will be Zeus, one will be Artemis, and you get to kind of like choose which direction you're going to go, and like you choose upgrades from them for yourself. But it is, I think it's more of a roguelite though than a like a which is like just to say that it's still, you still get hard resets whenever you die, but you carry over more progress because there are permanent upgrades you can buy for Zagreus, the main character. So it's one of those things where it's like it takes a lot from Isaac, but I think it's at a much more approachable point to the genre because it allows you to actually do more hard progress, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, I imagine that any roguelike game that comes out after like 2011, the last 10 years or so, has to take at least some inspiration from the Binding of Isaac, just because of just how much of a phenomenon it is.
I think you have to. It did so many things right. I don't think you're wrong to like strike out and try to do new things. But I think there are some like fundamentals that Isaac touches on in the roguelike genre, which is like keep your gameplay relatively simple and augment the gameplay. I think that is just something that is just such a good lesson to take away when designing a roguelike, because there's a lot that you can do with it. You determine the parameters of what your gameplay is doing and what those augments do to that gameplay. And I think that's a very good philosophy to have because it makes these games replayable. Like keeping them simple, but like have a really high ceiling for change is just like it's the bread and butter of the genre at this point, I think. And Isaac exemplifies that.
Oh yeah. I'm thinking about other games that aren't like super replayable. Like, of course, I have hundreds of hours in Magic: The Gathering Arena and other games of that genre. But I'm thinking about other games that just mean a whole lot to me. That I, like fundamental pillars of my existence that I have not nearly put that much time into. We've talked about it, before. I'm sure we'll talk about it in the future. We're both huge Metal Gear fans, right? And
yes,
I have put a lot of time into Metal Gear, but like I don't think that I've come close to putting the hours into Metal Gear that I have into this silly roguelike where you go around and you shoot tears at things. So I just think that speaks a lot to how these games kind of like get you hooked and get you like exploring all the different combinations and ways that the game can play out. So that just speaks a lot to it.
Yeah. Just to kind of button that idea, I think like if Call of Duty modern or like kind of like a homogenized first person shooter controls, I think Isaac homogenized in a good way, or like set the standard for what your gameplay should strive for, which is just simple but infinitely replayable.
So I'm addicted to this game, but sometimes I can step away from it and not play it for a while. Before I made the exhortation to you, it had been a while since I've played Isaac, but since I exhorted it and I wanted to get back into it, so I to get ready for this discussion, I started playing it, and I'm addicted again. Hello, my name is Will, and I'm addicted to Binding of Isaac Rebirth. I think I've put 20 hours. Now it has been a little bit since we did the exhortation, so it hasn't just been a week, but I think that I've put about 15-20 hours into it since then. Have you gotten super seriously addicted to it since we started playing this game again?
Okay, so I intentionally chose not to get addicted to it. Like I will, for one of the things that makes it hard for me to play it right now is that I played it a lot on the PlayStation whenever I was primarily playing there. Since I got my PC, my girlfriend has largely, let's just say she has commandeered the PlayStation. She's using it for her purposes now. And I have to play on her Switch to play Isaac, which is also being commandeered by children to play Breath of the Wild. So I think I got about like 6 or 7 hours into it since I was exhorted with Binding of Isaac, which it's on sale on Steam right now, and I'm just eyeballing it real hard because I do want to play more. It is just one of those games that once you start playing, you just get it's really good at making you like kind of hard to detach yourself from it because it's just like we said, it's just a very interesting approach to game design, and I think about it a lot after playing it.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to try to wean myself off of it, probably with Rocket League or Magic, one of those. My other vices, and finally wean myself off of it, and until a couple months later, I'll dust it off and get addicted all over again. But I have some quick hits for you. Would you like to get into it?
Yeah, first one's mine though. I'm gonna hit you with it.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
So, Will, you've been playing this a long time, so you can probably go on huge tears about this. But I'm gonna ask anyways. Who is your favorite boss, and separately final boss?
Okay, so for my favorite boss, this is kind of a silly answer, but I think that mine's going to be the Duke of Flies. I just something about that boss I find very compelling. I enjoy it. It kind of reminds me of like a kind of like a bullet hell situation where it moves in a kind of straight line pattern where it bounces off the walls and it keeps shooting these flies at you, and like you keep trying to hit it with your tears, but these flies that it keeps vomiting out keep getting in your way. It's a bit of a softball boss once you're like really good at the game. But I remember the Duke of Flies giving me a lot of trouble when I very first started this game, and is probably like one of my favorite designs out of all of the like early bosses that everyone would have seen. And as far as final boss, I think I'll go with Satan. I like the Satan boss a lot.
Yeah, I like both of those bosses. Duke of Flies was one that, it was kind of a big what the fuck the first time I played against it. It's just a very like grotesque thing. And then of course, you gotta love the big Lucifer. I'd say for me, my favorite boss also is another one that I consider to be like whenever I think of Isaac, I immediately think of this because this was my first wall, like the first boss that just halted my progress every time I came across it. But it was Gemini.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I actually like it more for its flavor than anything. And then final boss is the Lamb. I've never fought the Lamb. I have made it really deep into Binding of Isaac, but there's a certain point where I just wanted to play something she could let loose and just kind of relax with. And Binding of Isaac was that game for her, which is why she had so many hours in it. And I remember the first time she, went to Sheol, and the first time she fought the Lamb, and how insane that boss fight was, and also how just like cool the Lamb looks. It was just a very and she got stuck on it forever. She fought it so many times. And whenever I just remember that moment when she crossed that finish line and was how excited she was. I just have a lot of it's like a demonic figure in hell type thing, but it's still just like a really sweet memory that I have of that.
Yeah, the Lamb is a really cool boss. It's multi-stage. It's very it's flavorful in a way, to what the Lamb is. Very, very good one. Let me ask you as a complement to this question. So the seven deadly sins bosses that you'll see throughout the game. Which one of those is your favorite to fight?
I'd say probably. I forget which one's the one that rides the horse, like the horse stick.
The horse stick. That's a different thing. Those are the horsemen. There's a couple of those. I'm talking about there's greed, but there's also like lust, envy, sloth, gluttony. Do you know which ones I'm talking about?
Yeah. I know which ones you're talking about. I thought that was one of them, but I guess it would probably be. Yeah, I think maybe I think probably envy would be the one because I think I've encountered it the most. It's like I encounter lust a lot as well, but lust is just kind of like very easy for me,
Yeah.
But I think envy. I think I like the boss design of envy a lot.
I will say, and I don't know the name of it. I don't think I like any of them over the others. The one I absolutely hate is the one where it just goes in arcs. And then when you like kill it, it breaks into two more pieces that go faster, and you have to like kill all of them. It plays a lot like the Duke of Flies, but I actually don't like it when I have to fight that one.
Yeah, I feel like every time I fought that one, that it was always in like a really close quarters too, so it made it extra agitating. You just didn't have
Oh
as much
yeah.
maneuverability with it.
Sure, sure. Well, let me ask you, and I don't know how far you've gotten into the game, but if you had the choice to go, where would you go? Sheol or the chest?
I have made it far enough to make this decision before. I've gone to both. I think as interesting as the environments are in the chest, I think Sheol is just where I always like to go. It has I mean, honestly, just the coolest bosses and stuff. Even though they
Yeah.
beat the crap out of me, I really like Sheol. It's sweet.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially since you like the lamb boss fight so much. I would say if I wasn't trying to like complete objectives or anything like that, I would probably always go to the chest, just for story reasons, and also I just like the design of the cathedral. I like all the like how it goes from being like super dark depths to like, oh, you're in a church now.
Stained glass.
Stained glass, and then yeah, I really like that. So yeah, so that's my answer. Can you spell Isaac correctly the first time?
So I can do it if I'm not thinking about having to spell it. If I'm just like writing it in a sentence, I could spell it correctly. But I bet if you asked me to spell it without it being spelled out in front of me, it would. I'd probably not. I'd probably put two S's.
I can't. I actually had to when I was writing up the script for this, I actually had to like copy and paste Isaac, so I didn't have to worry about continually spelling it correctly.
That's amazing. And then I guess, what item are you most excited to come across in a run?
Oh, there are so many. Okay, so there are definitely items I don't ever want to see. Soy milk is one of those. There's a lot of rinky-dink like usable items that I don't think are that good.
What's the one that splits your tiers? Like they go off in a V?
Yeah. There's the one that like gives you double tiers. You shoot two at one, and they go off in different directions. I know what you're talking about, but I don't know the name of it.
I hate that one.
Okay, yeah, that one's tough. There is, I mean, basically, this probably speaks to me as a player. Like, I'm sure, like, you can get really good with items that kind of, make you super fast or let you do this and that. But I mean, let's be honest. Anytime you see something that increases your damage is like the number one way to like be really good and end a run. So I'm always looking for anything that's going to give me, +1 damage. Polycephus, I think, is the one where it gives you just one big eye, and then like your tiers are slow, but they're huge and they do like almost like double damage. Like that's like those types of items are the ones that I always want to get.
I think that I lean towards items that allow me to maneuver more, or not necessarily increase my speed, but they can kind of cover up my mistakes. And
Yeah.
this one's very basic, but shielded tiers.
Oh,
Anytime I
okay.
get that, anytime I can get something that can like negate enemy abilities and just kind of let me get out of like a tricky situation, I go for it. And like the shielded tiers is the one because you can just kind of like fire them out and create a wall and get yourself out of a bad spot. And I really like that about that one.
This is a bit of a normie answer, but Brimstone. I mean, everyone loves Brimstone. It's
Yeah.
obviously one of the best items you can get. So Brimstone is always like an auto get. Even the Brimstone familiar, like Lil Brimstone, that's a weaker and a little hard to control. I'll still like always get that just because it's so good. Do you like the things that make your tiers into not just tiers, but like I'm thinking of like Dr. Fetus, where you start shooting bombs, or what's it called? It's like IPAC or IPSAC, where it basically makes you vomit like arcing bombs. Do you like those items?
I think those are fine. I think I like the ones that like wholly go off like just nuts, or like there's one that like does like rainbows, right?
I don't recall. I've probably seen that before, but I don't recall off the top of my head.
Okay, well there's some really like insane abilities that like your tiers just aren't even tiers anymore. Like and like the bombs are kind of akin to that. But I
Yeah.
like when you get so many abilities like stacked on your tiers that you're just shooting these like rays or whatever else. You know what I mean? Like I like it when it goes more in that direction. The bombs. So the bombs in Isaac, I try to stay abilities that use too many of them because I always end up killing myself on the bombs.
How about pills? Do you use pills a lot, or do you just like try not to use those?
Oh, I use them every time I come across them because there's some really good ones. I get punished for it a lot, but it's just kind of like for me, it's like, hey, if this doesn't work out, whatever, I can just do another run. But like, I think the runs where I have the most success are the ones where I had good pills that I hit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm actually, I don't know why, because I never use like blood donation machines or like the sacrifice rooms. I never do any of those, but like I'll take every single pill that's given to me. And it doesn't usually hurt me too much. Like it's always kind of even, like you may hit one that kind of brings you down a little bit, but then you'll get one that like, brings up another stat and you feel like it was all kind of a wash.
Oh, the ones that I've had, like there was one where I had like all good pills, and I had like it was like tears up, tears speed up, and tear damage up, and I was just like shredding everyone. So it's those experiences that made me kind of go like, you know what? I think maybe getting a bad one every now and then is just worth it.
For sure, for sure. To go back to the items, one like strategy that I love, I absolutely want to cheese the game. I do not want to win fairly. A combination that I actually really love is a combination of flying and then spectral tears. So your tears like go through like rocks and all sorts of other stuff. So you can like fly above rocks where enemies can't reach you, and you can shoot them through the rocks. I will absolutely take an extra hour or two to cheese the game and use that to its full advantage.
Hey, if it's there, you got to do it. But that also makes you like a nasty like combo player or something like that in Magic, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, that's absolutely like the turn zero storm thing to do in Isaac.
Now that we've alienated all of our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. Magic Talk will do that. I think I got one more question for you. So like there's a bunch of different characters and we didn't really go through all of them, but like what is your favorite character to play in a run of Isaac?
Definitely not the Lost. I hate getting the Lost because then you can't heal. I would say I've unlocked several of the characters, but Tristan is the one that has unlocked the most. And I think the runs that I've most enjoyed watching from her was the Azazel runs, where you start off as the flying, like kind of like demon type thing. That's Azazel, right?
Yes.
Okay, so those are the ones I've always enjoyed watching the most, just because it led to the most interesting runs. Because they're like playing as Azazel like leads to another character that you can unlock or another ending that you can get, and the challenge was just like super interesting because Azazel also I don't think can heal, but yeah, that was probably my favorite that I saw.
Oh, nice. Yeah, there are there are even unlockable characters that I haven't gotten yet. I actually don't think I have the Lost. Even though I've put all this time into it, there are certain things in the game that are like really difficult to do. Like there are challenges that I just like cannot do, and I play them a couple of times. And I'm like, this is actively unfun. I don't want to have to like make myself do this, so I'll just live without this extra character. I'd have to say that my favorite character to play is Judas. Who has a really cute fez. Starts out with extra money as a reference to the 30 coins that he got, and he starts out with the Book of Belial, which you could use to, I believe it doubles your damage or gives you +2 damage. It's something really good. Makes your tears really powerful, but in exchange for that, he's very weak. He starts with 1 heart, or maybe it's 2. It's one of those. It's lower than just the normal starting with Isaac. So he's a really glass cannon character, but he really leans into my play style where I just want the most powerful tears I can get and just basically blaze through everything.
I think I've played as Judas several times as well. He's one of the the early ones I think you can get. I like him as well. I like any of the characters that can kind of give you that leg up, especially when you're just like, okay, this time I'm going to make that push.
For sure. And I like Isaac too. Like I said, Isaac, once you play the game for a little bit, he eventually gains a starting item, a lot like Judas, and he starts with the D6, which is one of the more powerful items in the game. It actually lets you exchange an item that you haven't picked up yet for another random item. So if you're someone like me or people who are super into the game where you you'll look up every item and you see what it does and you try to evaluate, is this a good fit for my current build? You can actually game the D6 to like re-roll things multiple times until you get something that synergizes really well with what you're doing or is just a good item overall. every now and then I like doing a run like that where I, like spend hours and hours like researching everything and trying to get as many rolls on the D6 as possible. But I can't do it too much because it is really stressful if you want to put that much like planning and time into one Isaac run.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been to the point that I go that I've stressed myself out. I've mostly just I think I probably lean more towards the I'll just see what I get type playthrough, but I do like kind of try to like strategize what I'm going to pick up as I'm going. I don't think I've actually gotten to the point where I've gotten the D6 for Isaac. I think as much time as I put into the game, my skill level may not be very high, you know.
Sure. And that's totally, a reasonable way to do it. So basically it's a black hole and I've been sucked in completely. There's no hope for me. There's still hope for you. Please do everything you can to escape from this, Jordan. You do not want to be here with me.
I wish you had said that before I pressed buy on the Steam sale page.
That being said, that makes this sound like a really bad game, but no, this is a really, really good, well designed, really fun game, and I'm glad that we were able to talk about it this episode.
Yeah, meat and potatoes. Put it in your plate. If you're into what we've talked about, I think it's a very rewarding experience. It also, I think it's one of the games that like as I played and as I watched it, like it taught me a lot about like value in good game design. Mostly just that like more is not always better, and in this case, the type of more that it gives you, which is like the variation and like augments and stuff, it had more power than like giving you more mechanics, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So thank you for joining me on this exhortation, Binding of Isaac Rebirth. Good game.
Yeah, great game. I would give it the big dandy AF if we didn't already come into this episode knowing that it was going to be fantastic. I feel like.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Dandy AF is for something that you have been clued into, and you're not already like this is like one of the best design games ever. So, but yes. So I want to know, what is your exhortation for next episode?
Okay, so we're going off. I guess going off the beaten path a little bit. I doubt you have experience with this. This is a movie.
Okay.
So I know the schedules are a little dense right now with school and finals and stuff like that. So I wanted to give us something light and very fulfilling. This is a comedy for the most part.
Okay.
It's a film by Wes Anderson, The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Oh, okay. So I haven't seen this. I know Wes Anderson is like a like director. I know that this movie is like really popular and lots of people think it's great. I'm familiar with like the idea of what it is. I've never seen it. I haven't seen any Wes Anderson movie, so this is definitely going to be a new experience for me.
Yeah, so this is what I would call one of me and Tristan's two movies. Like whenever I think like of movies that like have been a big part of our relationship, this is one of the two, and it is very funny. It is very touching. I can't stress the funny enough. It is just like on another level in terms of humor, but it's got a lot of heart, and I'm excited for you to watch it, especially like post-election, mid-finals, all that stuff like that. I hope that it can like brighten up one of your evenings. I was gonna say this is an easy one of my favorite of all time movies. I've rewatched it a bunch, and it's still just as like great every time that I watch it.
Definitely in the mood for comedies. I enjoy a joke from time to time. I can yuck it up with the best of them. So yeah, looking forward to watching this movie. Thank you for the exhortation.
Yeah, and thank you for accepting it. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it.
All right, well, let's get into some back matter here. So I know that we've been playing. I've been hopelessly addicted to Binding of Isaac. I know that you've been getting into some stuff. What other than the exhortation, and of course, thinking about ways to make this podcast the best it can be. What have you been up to since we last spoke?
All right, so for the last week, this is currently the last day of my vacation. I had a nice little, nice 10-day escape from my job, which is undergoing some interesting changes, which hopefully I'll have some more to say about that the next time we talk on the podcast. But I have, on my vacation, been understandably playing a bunch of games whenever I'm not like, doing big things to the house like, cleaning out rooms that have been a mess since we moved in, that sort of thing. The games I've been playing are Dark Souls. Obviously, we talked about that a little bit. I have just been like Isaac, for you, it's one of those games that once I like dip back into, it's very hard to pull myself away from. I can like chain runs together. I'll play through it once and just immediately start up another one because that game just has so many different like ways to play it. I played through all of Life is Strange season 1. Was emotionally devastated by that. It was really good. And I've since started up season 2, which is I finished the first episode a few days ago, and it's already even better than the first season was. But that's mostly been my time off. What about you, Will?
Now, Life is Strange. That's the game where the teenagers talk like real teenagers, right? They use words like hella.
I would say they talk up. Okay, so you joke about that, but I had a lot of friends that said that stuff, and it was just as cringy then.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that this game is very much a relic of when it did come out, like the way teenagers really were. Like, you weren't a teenager when this game came out, by the way, right?
I'm a very old man, just so everyone knows. I can't speak as to I can't make any like assumptions about how the youth speak these days because I have no basis for my rambling. So
okay, so this game is very okay. I think that people who have negative things to say about the negative about the dialogue in this game and say that this isn't how teenagers talk, weren't teenagers whenever it came out.
not to I guess just to get into my back matter here. I mean, Kaladesh Remastered came out on Magic Arena, and it's killing me because I'm looking at all these cards that I want to play, but I can't because I don't have the cards. There's no like I didn't buy like a huge pre-order. I didn't open up a ton of packs because I want to save my gold for like a standard set. And I'm looking at all these lists with like torrential gear hulks and electrostatic pummelers, and it's really killing me, man. I need wild card.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I think that both Amonkhet Remastered and Kaladesh Remastered have kind of really. I have played a bunch of Arena as well. I'm alongside you there. Where like this last week when I wasn't playing Dark Souls or Life is Strange, I was playing a shit ton of Magic and really enjoying it. But I think that both Amonkhet and Kaladesh have kind of like really brought to light how bad the wildcard system is on Arena. I know Saffron Olive did a write-up on the cost of playing Arena, especially if you want to play Historic, and how like bad it's gotten. And I'm feeling it, man, with Kaladesh. There's so many decks I want to play. Like cards that I could buy for a couple bucks in real life are like, it's going to take me like $50 just to get a play set of. And I think that's a real problem.
Right. I don't want to get too much into the economy of Magic Arena on this podcast, but I just gotta say I remember Saffron Olive saying that, and I just don't think that the economy should be tailored towards what his use of Arena is. I actually do quite like the Arena economy. I'm a bit of a apologist for it, and I mean, obviously we want the cards and we don't want to pay for them, but we could get the cards. All we have to do is just pay for them. I think that us as Magic players need to like be willing to pay for the cards that we want to play with, so to speak. But still, I don't want to spend the money, so it's a little frustrating to look at and not have these cards and not be able to get them for the in-game currency. But other than that, I've been playing a lot of Brawl on Arena. There was Historic Brawl a little bit ago, so I just slammed the hell out of my Nicol Bolas Historic Brawl deck. And I think that you did a little bit too as well, right?
Oh yeah, Nethroi Apex of Death. Who needs new cards whenever they've already printed the best one? If anyone is still listening and is interested in playing Magic, like there is a very like simple part of my brain that likes small creatures that have value effects on them entering the battlefield that just releases like an insane amount of like endorphins in me, and that deck just does it better than most because you're bringing a lot of them back at once from the graveyard, and that's just it's been great. I love it.
I love that you keep sending me all of these different Netherway Brawl decks that you keep brewing. I love how different each one is, and I love that you're putting so much thought and effort into these lists. So, please continue to send me all the Netherway Brawl lists you write.
Yeah, if ever there were a thing you could do that could just expend the max amount of energy and get you the lowest amount of like return, it is building brawl lists. And not to mention a very like niche brawl list. But man, I'm just addicted to it. I love playing that deck.
Yeah, it's definitely your type of insane like recursion value deck, and I hope that I never see it ever again.
I have bad news for you, bud. You bought me 2 copies of it, and I'll be playing it in Commander too.
Okay. Yeah, but that's all I've been doing. There is one thing I want to let everybody know before we get out of here is I have made allusions to different things, different extra stuff that this podcast has in the works. I want to let everyone know the Disc Dandies YouTube channel is up and alive.
The Dandy Boys on YouTube, that's Dandy AF.
So this is where right now it's just our audio podcast in video form. I've put a little bit of work to make them extra aesthetic for our podcast. So it's not video. You're not going to be able to see our beautiful faces on there. But if you want to hear this podcast on YouTube, just search Disc Dandies. We're the first thing that comes up. All of our episodes will be on there, and not saying anything's in the works or anything, but if anything extra happens, I'm sure that YouTube is a great place to look for that stuff as well. So please come give us a like, like our videos, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon, all the things that you're supposed to do to show your support to us, and we really appreciate you checking out our new YouTube channel.
Well, Will, that's great. You ready to button this up?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of Disc Dandies. You can follow Will on Twitter at Aggro Rhetoric and myself at Action Pancake. And as always, we'd love it if you would follow along with our exhortations and stay up to date on all the latest Disc Dandies excitement at Disc Dandies Pod. And, join us here for the next episode for another spin with the Disc Dandies.
Later. Hey, Craig.
Look who's on their A game today and actually showing up.
Yeah, we had a little trouble with Craig last time. I wonder if maybe he was having a bad day just like me.
Honestly, I think it's just that we've talked so much shit to Craig that he was just like, you know what? These guys, they deserve a big L.
That's true. We were really ragging on him, and I don't think Craig deserves that. He kind of saved our butt after the Anchor debacle.
Yeah, so I would like to take this opportunity to say that post-Thanksgiving, I am thankful for Craig.
Hey, Craig. Thanks.
Still on thin ice. Get your shit together, but thank you.
Oh, Craig, you're good. You could stick around for another episode.
Little did they know that they were too late. Their attempts to please me have fallen on deaf ears, and while they were recording this, they did not know that I, Craig, would make it so that they would lose 15 minutes of this Binding of Isaac discussion. Disc Dandies, fuck you.